to the kitchen, and now we'll be filming the preparation of a dish that I'm calling Salmon and Oysters Rockefeller. As you can see, I have a fillet of salmon, flesh side down and skin side up. What we want to do in the first part of the preparation is to flatten the salmon just a little bit, and we do that by putting a piece of plastic film over it. And you could use a mellet for this preparation, but salmon is such a delicate fish that I'd rather use a much broader surface, so I have a small saute pan, and I'm lightly going to just pound it. You can see that we're flattening it out. I want to flatten it to maybe a quarter of an inch thick. And as you pound it, you want to sort of go away from the flesh itself so that you're not damaging any of the flesh. The next step in the preparation is making a salmon pate, and what we'll do is go to our food processor. I have some salmon that I've cubed up, and we're going to process that with a little bit of heavy cream, and we're looking for a consistency of like cream cheese, soft cream cheese texture. Now we have our pate into the well-chilled bowl, and the next step in the process is to just spread it on top of our salmon. We want to get about 1/8 of an inch, I think, would be fine for this particular preparation. You can see it spreads pretty readily, just as if it was soft cream cheese. I'm going to cover the entire surface. The next step is for us now to roll it as if you're making sort of like a jelly roll. So we just want to bring it up like that and just continue to roll it. Taking care not to tear the flesh. Salmon is very delicate. We'll continually roll it until it's a cylinder shape. Now we continue rolling it in our parchment paper because we'll be steaming it inside the parchment, which helps keep it nice and moist and protects the flesh. Sort of tie the ends a little bit like this, both sides. And the next step would be to put a piece of plastic film out. This also protects it while it's steaming. The whole idea is to seal in all the juices, and it really does serve this dish well and really makes for a nice moist preparation of the salmon. Once again, we want to roll it, and we'll sort of twist the ends, both sides. It looks beautiful. Now we're ready to place it into our hotel pan. And we'll place it right into our steamer and steam it for about 15 to 20 minutes or until it reaches about 145 internal temperature degrees. The next step of the dish, we want to prepare the oysters, and then we'll set those aside because they only take a few seconds to broil at the end of the preparation for the dish. We purchase oysters from Wellfleet, which comes from Cape Cod. They're well known for their sweetness and plumpness, and these look very nice. So it's a lot easier opening an oyster than it is a clam, believe it or not. The oyster, there's a point right at the tip that you want to stick your knife into, your oyster knife, and you just want to kind of pop it open. There's a little connector muscle in there. You want to try to just scrape the top of that just a little bit. Take off your top shell. You can see how nice and moist that is. The juice is still in there. The whole key is to try to maintain the juice and keep it well within the shell. And then you want to slowly go around the bottom of the shell. You can feel the little muscle loosening up, and now we've disjointed the oyster from the shell. The next step is we put it on our little sizzle platter, and we've prepared a little topping. This is a classical Rockefeller topping, and at the end of the show we'll tell you a little bit about Oysters Rockefeller and the nature of that dish and that concept altogether and the recipe for it. It's just breadcrumbs with the spinach and celery and some shallots, and pernod, which is It's a French liqueur that has an anisette flavor, sort of like a licorice type flavor. And we're just going to put a little breadcrumb topping right on the top of that. We don't want to overwhelm it. That's fine. And we'll set this dish aside, keep it nice and moist in the refrigerator. And as I said, the last minute we're just going to place it on the roller just to brown the crumbs and just to warm it up a little bit to help release the flavor of the oyster. The next step in our preparation for this dish is making the Sabayon sauce. Sabayon is a classical French dessert sauce. You may ask, well, why are we using this in our entree and our fish dish? Well, we're going to make it savory by adding fresh tarragon to it and a fish egg, salmon roe, which will give it a salty flavor. So we're using a classical technique to make a light sauce that we're going to enhance with these other flavors to make it appropriate for this particular dish. I've already separated 2 eggs for this, and so we're using the yolks only. You could save the whites for another preparation if you like. And in France, you know, this sauce, being a classical sauce, has been around for many years. And the way that the French farm wives used to make the dish would be to crack the farm egg, the fresh eggs, and they would take half of the shell, and that's how they would measure the sugar. So we're actually going to do it that way. So we have 2 yolks, so we'll put in 2 half shells of the sugar. And then the other part of making this sauce is white wine, and so they use the other shell and they put equal amounts of white wine into there. So we're actually going to put 2 shells filled with white wine. And there you have it. The next step is we take it over to the stove, and we're going to emulsify the eggs and make a liaison with the eggs and the sugar cooking, and it'll bind it together with the wine to make a nice fluffy sort of foamy sauce that we'll add the salmon caviar to it and the fresh tarragon to make it a savory sauce for our salmon dish. That's great. It looks like our salmon's done. So we want to be very careful when we handle this because it's going to be a little bit warm coming right out of the steamer. What you want to do is slowly unwrap it. And you need to be careful because actually the steam will seal the plastic wrap, so we want to cut it a little bit. Tear it off of there, and it will pull right out eventually here. And slowly take it off. As I said, salmon is a very delicate fish, and this is a nice delicate preparation. And now we'll unroll it from parchment paper. This looks very nice. Okay, we're going to let our salmon rest just for a second here before we actually do slice it. I've steamed off a little bit of spinach, and that becomes the base of our plate for our presentation purposes. So we're just going to put a little bit of the spinach on the bottom of our plate. Just like that. Don't be afraid to use your hands in cooking because that's what it's all about. So we have a little base of the spinach. And now we're going to just slice our salmon into cylinder shape. So I want to take off the first part here because it's sort of the end piece, and just set that aside. You can see how nice the inside has been cooked. The salmon mousse set up very well, and we'll make about a 2-inch slice here. It's very delicate, so we want to try not to damage the salmon as we take it off. You can see the nice roulade. The salmon mousse is nice, very nicely cooked inside. I'm going to place it on top of our spinach. We have our Sabayon sauce that we finished on the stove. I'm going to just whip that a little bit more just to incorporate the salmon and the salmon eggs and the tarragon. We just want to spoon a little bit of that right over the fish. We call it a foamy Sabayon because of the air incorporated into the egg yolk and sugar mixture. See the salmon eggs right there? This is beautiful. What a beautiful dish. And then we have our oysters, which we're going to just flash underneath the broiler for a few minutes. So we have our oyster, and we're just going to, for our presentation purposes, place the oyster right on top. And there you have our dish for our first wine dinner, salmon and oysters Rockefeller. Bon appetit, and we'll look forward to seeing you in our next show. Thank you very much.